When I found the golden envelope under the couch that morning, I thought it was a part of the decorations, just another card waiting to be opened. But when I turned it over and read the name on the front, my hands went cold. It didn't say my name. It said hers. Her mother's name. That was the moment something inside me began to crumble quietly, like glass breaking behind a closed door. My name is Salma, and for most of my life, I believed I had done everything right. I raised my son with love, patience, and prayer. I treated his wife, the woman he brought into our home, as my own daughter. But sometimes, the people we treat like family are the ones who remind us that love doesn't always mean loyalty. It all began 2 weeks before my 60th birthday. The house smelled of vanilla candles and new paint. My daughter-in-law Rania had insisted on repainting the dining room. She said it would look beautiful for the party. My son Fahad was busier than usual, coming home late, whispering in corners with her, and smiling that guilty kind of smile men wear when they think they're hiding something nice. So I thought, how wonderful, they're planning a surprise. After all, I'd never had one before. Not in 60 years. I remember sitting on the terrace that evening, watching the orange sky fade behind the neem trees, feeling a rare warmth in my chest. Maybe this birthday would be different. Maybe, after all these years of taking care of everyone else, it was finally my turn to be celebrated. Our home wasn't grand, but it carried years of laughter. There was always the sound of clinking teacups, the hum of the ceiling fan, and Rania's soft voice floating from the kitchen as she called me Amij. I liked her at first. She was polite, modern but respectful. When she first married Fahad 5 years ago, she used to sit with me in the afternoons, helping me peel peas or cut mangoes for Acker. We would talk about everything: her dreams, her job, her mother's health. She often said, "You're more like a mother than a mother." Those words had meant something once. But lately, things had shifted. Our tea time talks had turned into quick greetings. She spent more time on her phone, less time with me. Fahad's attention seemed divided between his wife's subtle frowns and his mother's silent patience. Still, I told myself it's normal. That's what marriage does. A woman's priorities change. What I didn't realize was that my place in my own home was also changing. Quietly, like a chair being moved while I wasn't looking. That week, I noticed a flurry of activity: Rania, ordering things online, whispering on the phone, even hiding receipts. Once, when I entered the living room unexpectedly, she quickly minimized a message on her laptop. "Amiji, you startled me." She laughed nervously, clutching the computer. "What are you planning?" I teased. "Something for the party." She smiled, her lipstick perfectly in place. "You'll see. Just promise not to snoop." I smiled back, pretending to play along, but something about her tone, too bright, too quick, sat uneasily in my stomach. Later that night, I told myself to stop overthinking. "She's young," I whispered to myself. "Maybe she just wants everything to be perfect." But perfection, I would soon learn, was not her goal. A few days later, Rania's mother came over. She was an elegant woman, always draped in silk, her perfume lingering in the hall long after she left. I welcomed her warmly. We exchanged pleasantries as always. But that day, I noticed something different. The way Rania looked at her, with a softness she no longer had for me. They sat together at the dining table, whispering, giggling. I overheard words: guest list, hall, surprise. I felt a flutter of excitement again. So it's true, I thought. They're planning my birthday party together. It warmed me, for a moment, that she wanted to include her mother too. I didn't mind sharing the joy. Until I saw that envelope. It was early morning. The house was quiet. Fahad had left for work. I was dusting the living room when my duster caught on something under the couch. A corner of gold shimmered in the light. I reached down, pulled it out, and smiled an invitation, maybe. The card was thick, embossed with silver leaves. I turned it over, expecting to see my name written in neat calligraphy. Instead, in Rania's delicate handwriting, it said, "To Mama for your special day." I froze. For a long moment, I couldn't move. I looked again, Sure, I'd misread it. Maybe it was just another card. Maybe she was planning a different event. But then I saw the date, March 12th. My birthday. The air in the room changed. I felt the weight of something I couldn't yet name pressing down on my chest. I slipped the card open with trembling fingers. Inside was an invitation. You are cordially invited to the grand birthday celebration of Mrs. Sita, Rania's mother. The same date. The same hall I thought was booked for my surprise. The truth hit me like cold water poured over my head. The decorations she'd ordered. The calls she'd made. The paint in the dining room. None of it was for me. The surprise I had been waiting for wasn't mine at all. And that realization, quiet, humiliating, and sharp, settled inside me like a stone. I sat down slowly, holding the card in my lap, listening to the ticking clock in the silence of my own home. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at that gold invitation as if the words might rearrange themselves and make sense. How could this be? I'd told Rania my birthday plans months ago, that I didn't want anything fancy. Just dinner with the family, maybe a small cake. And she had insisted on something special. But now, everything she'd said, every little act of kindness over the past few weeks, twisted in my mind like tangled thread. It wasn't for me. None of it was. When she came home that afternoon, humming and carrying shopping bags, I studied her face carefully. Long day? I asked. Very, she said brightly, placing the bags on the sofa. I was picking up decorations. For the party? I asked casually, keeping my voice steady. She froze for just a second, barely noticeable, then smiled. Of course you'll see him, you'll love it. Her words were sugar, but her eyes darted away too quickly. I almost wanted to believe her again. Almost. That evening, I found myself moving through the house differently, watching, listening, noticing. Her whispers on the phone. Her mother's frequent visits. Once, when I passed by the kitchen, I heard Rania say, "Yes, Mama, the hall confirmed. Everything's set for your day." My chest tightened. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe quietly, afraid to be caught. She continued, No, she doesn't know anything. Fahad thinks it's for emoji. It'll be a double celebration, but your name will be first, of course." The words echoed in my head like a bell. A double celebration. Your name first. So, she wasn't just lying to me. She was using my own birthday as camouflage to throw a grand celebration for her mother. And my son. My own son had no idea. That night, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan hummed softly, but inside my head, every memory replayed the gifts she'd hidden. The tone of her voice, the way she'd avoided my eyes. It all fit now, like pieces of a cruel puzzle. At dawn, I made tea and sat on the terrace. The sky was pale pink, and the birds were just beginning to wake. I told myself I wouldn't cry. I was too old for tears. But sometimes, disappointment cuts deeper than betrayal, because it comes from the people you still wish to love. For the next few days, I pretended not to know. I smiled when she mentioned the big day. I nodded when Fahad said, "Just wait, Amy, you'll be surprised." And every time, my heart broke a little more. Rania continued her preparations, ordering cakes, flowers, and lights. I even overheard her telling the decorator to make sure there were lots of pink lilies. Mama loves those. Not once did she ask what I loved. I realized then how invisible I'd become in my own home. Once, she used to come to me for advice on everything, recipes, fabrics, guests to invite. Now, she ran her household like a closed-door club, where I was just a polite visitor. The day before the party, I finally decided to test her. At breakfast, I said casually, "Rania, what should I wear for tomorrow? You've been planning so much. I want to look nice." She blinked, then quickly smiled. "Oh, wear that blue sari, Amiji. You'll look beautiful in it." "The one from last Eid?" I asked. "Yes, perfect. Don't worry, everything will be taken care of." Her tone was cheerful, but her eyes flickered again, a small, nervous tick I had never noticed before. That's when I knew, She was afraid I might find out. Later that afternoon, when everyone was out, I went into her room. Not out of malice, but because I needed the truth. On her desk was a small notepad filled with lists. Guest list, Mama's friends, Auntie Huma, Tonya Shazy. Cake design, happy birthday Mama. Banner, celebrating the woman who raised me. I stood there, holding that notepad and shaking hands, reading every line until the words blurred. My name wasn't mentioned anywhere. Not once. It wasn't just about a party anymore. It was about respect. About being erased quietly, while still living under the same roof. I had spent years helping Rania, guiding her through her first years of marriage, defending her when Fahad got frustrated, cooking her favorite dishes when she worked late. And now, on the one day that was meant to be mine, she'd turned it into someone else's celebration, right in front of me. That evening, when Fahad came home, I almost told him everything. But then I looked at his tired face, his hopeful smile, and I stopped myself. What would I even say? That your wife is lying to both of us? That she's using your mother's birthday to glorify her own? No. I wanted him to see it himself. Some truths are better when revealed naturally, when masks fall without help. So I waited. The next day arrived, my birthday. When I woke up, the house was quiet. Rania and Fahad had already left early for final preparations. They told me to get ready and that someone would pick me up in the evening. I put on the blue sari she'd suggested, tied my hair neatly, and sat alone on the sofa. The clock ticked. The sunlight faded. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting, that maybe I'd misread everything, that maybe, somehow, that invitation was just a coincidence. But deep down, I knew. The truth was waiting for me at that hall, hidden beneath the laughter and the music. When the car finally arrived, I stepped inside, my heart heavy but calm. As we drove through the city lights, I looked out the window and whispered a small prayer. God, let me have the strength to face whatever's waiting for me tonight. Because sometimes, the worst part of betrayal isn't the lie itself. It's having to sit through the celebration of it, pretending you don't see what's already broken. The car stopped outside a grand banquet hall, its entrance glowing with strings of soft golden lights. From a distance, it looked beautiful, like something out of a dream. I stepped out carefully, clutching my purse. The cool night air carried the scent of jasmine and freshly fried snacks. Music floated faintly from inside, laughter, applause, and the hum of celebration. For a moment, I felt small, just a mother, arriving late to her own birthday party, still hoping maybe, somehow, she'd been wrong. A young usher greeted me at the door. "Welcome, ma'am. This way, please," he said, guiding me toward the main hall. As I stepped in, the lights dazzled my eyes, pink and gold balloons, fresh lilies, a shimmering backdrop behind a huge cake. People filled the hall, dressed beautifully, chatting, smiling. My eyes searched for Fahad immediately. I spotted him near the stage, busy talking to the photographer. When he turned and saw me, his face lit up with relief. "Amy," he said, rushing over. "You made it. You look amazing." His arms wrapped around me in a warm hug, and for a second, I forgot everything. My son's embrace felt like safety again. But then Rania appeared, her heels clicking against the marble. Her sari a soft blush pink that matched every decoration in the room. "Amaji," she said with a wide, practiced smile. "Happy birthday." She leaned forward and kissed my cheek lightly, the scent of her perfume strong, too sweet, too artificial. And in that smile, I saw everything she was trying to hide. I looked around the hall again. Something was off. On the big screen behind the stage, a slideshow played pictures of Rania's mother, her at weddings, her with relatives, her smiling in gardens. And then, finally, the words appeared in glittering gold letters across the screen. "Happy 55th birthday, Mrs. Sita Ahmed." The applause erupted. Music swelled. My stomach turned to stone. No mention of me, no photo, no greeting. Just her, Rania's mother, standing proudly beside the cake, laughing as people cheered. I stood frozen, surrounded by people who didn't even notice me, the woman whose birthday had been borrowed. Fahad, bless his heart, looked confused too. He clapped awkwardly, glancing back at me, then at Rania. Wait, I thought he began softly. But Rania shushed him with a bright smile. We're celebrating both birthdays, honey. We just started with Mama's, since she's the guest of honor. Guest of honor. That phrase hit harder than any slap. The microphone squealed as Rania took the stage, her voice sugary and confident. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, to celebrate my beautiful mother, the woman who's been my strength and inspiration. Mama, this is all for you. Applause again. Cameras flashed. And I stood there, invisible, my name never mentioned. I watched her mother walk up the stage, her smile wide and gracious. She hugged Rania, kissed her forehead, and then turned to the crowd. I'm so blessed to have a daughter like her, she said. She makes me proud every day. More applause. Not once did anyone mention my name. Not once did anyone say, and today, we also celebrate Fahad's mother. No. It wasn't my day anymore. It never was. I felt the sting of tears, but blinked them back. I wouldn't let them fall. Instead, I walked quietly to the back of the hall, finding a chair near the exit. The noise blurred laughter, music, clinking glasses, all fading into a dull hum. I thought about every birthday I'd spent baking cakes for others, every dinner I'd hosted, every smile I'd faked when I was tired. And here I was, sitting alone at my own birthday party, watching someone else blow out the candles meant for me. Half an hour passed before Fahad came to find me. Ammi, why are you sitting here? Come, have dinner, he said gently. I looked up at him, my son, torn between two worlds. Tell me something, I said quietly. Did you know this wasn't for me? He frowned. What do you mean? Of course it's for you. And for Ronia's mom, a double party, that's what she said. I smiled faintly. And whose name did they announce first? His face fell. He didn't answer. I stood up slowly. My hands were trembling, but my voice was calm. Let's not ruin the party, I said softly. Your wife worked very hard on this. Let her enjoy it. I turned and began walking toward the door. Rania spotted me immediately. Amiji, where are you going? Dinner's about to start. Her voice was light, but I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes. She knew I'd seen through it all. I walked back a few steps, looked at her, and smiled. A calm, tired smile. You planned beautifully, Rania, I said quietly. Everything looks perfect. The decorations, the cake, the speech. Only one thing was missing. She swallowed hard. What's that? The truth? The music softened. A few nearby guests turned their heads, sensing tension. I held up the invitation card, the one I'd found under the couch. This is what I found that morning, I said. I thought it was for me. But it wasn't. And now, everyone can see who this night truly belongs to. Rania's face went pale. She stammered, Amiji, please, it's not. It was supposed to be. I raised a hand gently. Don't explain. I understand now. You wanted to honor your mother. That's a beautiful thing. But you didn't have to erase me to do it. The room had gone quiet. Even the music had stopped. Her mother stepped forward awkwardly. Salma dear, it wasn't like that. I looked at her kindly. It's all right. You deserve a celebration. But next time, let it be on your own day. And with that, I turned and walked out. The night air hit my face like freedom. Behind me, I could still hear the faint sound of applause starting again. Desperate, nervous, trying to fill the silence I left behind. Outside, I stood for a while beneath the fairy lights, breathing deeply. Somewhere inside, the hurt still burned, but above it all was a strange peace. Because in that moment, I realized something. Respect isn't given by being included in someone else's story. It's reclaimed when you decide to write your own. When I reached home that night, the house was dark and silent. The clock struck midnight just as I unlocked the door. The faint smell of roses still lingered on my sari, mixed with the scent of smoke and disappointment. I placed my purse on the table and sat in the living room, staring at the half-empty vase of lilies Rania had ordered for decoration. Their petals were already wilting, perfect timing, I thought. I poured myself a cup of tea, even though it had gone cold. My hands trembled as I lifted it, the spoon clinking softly against the cup, the only sound in the stillness. That was how I turned 60, alone, sipping cold tea in a house that no longer felt like mine. Half an hour later, I heard the key turn in the lock. The sound of footsteps, first Fahad's, then Rana. "Amy," my son called softly. "Are you awake?" I didn't answer. I just kept stirring the tea that no longer needed stirring. Rania entered first, her eyes red, her voice small. "Amiji, please, can we talk?" I looked up slowly. About what? The party? Or the performance? Her shoulders dropped. Fahad stepped beside her, uneasy, torn between loyalty and guilt. "Amy," he began, "she didn't mean to hurt you. She just wanted to celebrate her mother." I interrupted. "I understand that, Fahad. What I don't understand is why she had to use my day to do it." Rania's voice cracked. I thought combining both birthdays would make it special. Mama never gets celebrated, and I wanted to surprise her. I didn't think you'd mind." Her words stung, not because of what she said, but how easily she said it. As if my feelings were small enough to overlook, I leaned back in my chair. "You didn't think I'd mind that you replaced me at my own celebration? That you invited your friends, your mother's guests, while not even mentioning my name once?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Silence filled the space between us, heavy and suffocating. Fahad tried to step in, his voice low. "Amy, maybe she made a mistake." I turned to him sharply. "Mistake? Fahad, do you remember who used to bake your cakes every year, even when we had no money for gifts? Who stayed up at night sewing costumes for your school plays? Did I ever once forget your day?" He looked down, ashamed. "No, Amy." "Then tell me," I said softly, "why is it so easy for people to forget a mother once she becomes a mother-in-law?" No one spoke for a long time. The ticking clock filled the silence again, each second cutting deeper. Finally, Rania whispered, "You're right. I was selfish. I didn't mean to take your place." I sighed. "You didn't just take my place, Rania. You taught me that I never really had one." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please, Amiji, forgive me. I just wanted everyone to be happy." I smiled sadly. Sometimes, when we try to make everyone happy, we end up making no one proud. I stood up slowly, my knees aching but my heart steady. "From tomorrow," I said quietly, "I'll start looking for a small flat nearby. I need some space." Fahad's head snapped up. "Amy, you can't do that. This is your home." I looked around the room at the framed wedding photos. The furniture Rania had chosen, the kitchen where my presence had slowly become unwelcome. "Is it?" I asked softly. "Because tonight, I realized something. This house has walls I helped build, but it no longer has a place for my name." Rania fell to her knees beside me, clutching my hand. "Please, don't leave. I'll make it right, I promise. I'll throw another party just for you." I shook my head gently. "You can't fix respect with a cake, Rania. It's not about a party. It's about honesty, about being seen." She sobbed quietly, her tears falling onto my hand. I didn't pull away because forgiveness, I've learned, doesn't mean weakness. It means choosing peace for yourself. I squeezed her hand lightly and said, "I forgive you, but I won't let this happen again. You have your mother, and I have my dignity. Both deserve their own day." Fahad spoke softly. "Amy, please stay. We'll do better. I promise." I looked at him and smiled, not in anger, but with the calm of a woman who finally understood her worth. "I'll think about it," I said. "But whether I stay or go, things will change. I won't be the silent background anymore." Over the next few days, the house felt different. Rania moved quietly, trying to please me in small ways, cooking my favorite dishes, leaving tea outside my room. I appreciated the effort, but something fundamental had shifted. The bond we once shared, the easy laughter, the shared gossip over chai, now felt like an echo from another life. Fahad tried to bridge the distance, but even he could feel it, that invisible wall between his wife and his mother, built from unspoken words and bruised pride. One afternoon, a week after the incident, Rania came into my room holding a new invitation card. "Amiji," she said softly, "I wanted to show you this." I took it hesitantly. It was simple. No glitter, no gold, just white cardstock with neat blue lettering. It read, "Please join us to celebrate Salma Begum's 60th birthday, a day that belongs only to her." My throat tightened. I looked up at her. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because," she said, voice trembling, "I canceled the last payment to the hall. We'll host it here, just family. You deserve to be celebrated properly, not as someone's mother-in-law, but as yourself." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Then, quietly, I said, "Thank you, Rania. But this time, no surprises. Just truth." She nodded, eyes glistening. "Only truth." That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully, because forgiveness isn't about pretending the wound never happened. It's about accepting that it did, and still choosing to heal. And though the scars of that night would never completely fade, I finally felt something I hadn't in years: power. The power to define my own worth, even when others forget it. The following week arrived quietly, like a page turning after a long chapter. Outside, the spring breeze carried the faint scent of jasmine, the same flower I used to hang near the veranda every year on my birthday. Only this time, someone else had already done it. When I stepped out that morning, I saw Rania in the yard, tying a garland of fresh jasmine across the railing. Her hands trembled slightly, but her expression was calm, humble in a way I hadn't seen before. "Good morning, Amiji," she said softly, without looking up. "Good morning," I replied. I could see she wanted to say more, but she didn't. Sometimes silence carries more sincerity than words ever could. The new celebration was small, just family and two neighbors I'd known for years. No lavish decorations, no hired photographers, no glittering banners with someone else's name. Just a table covered in a white cloth, a homemade cake, and laughter that finally felt real. As the guests arrived, I noticed something everyone already knew. Neighbors came up to me quietly, offering gentle smiles, their eyes full of understanding. They didn't ask what happened, but their tone said it all. The story of the birthday mix-up had traveled fast, though no one dared to speak it openly. Halfway through the evening, one of the older aunties leaned over to me and whispered, "Selma, I'm glad you stood up for yourself. Too many mothers-in-law stay silent and disappear inside their own homes." Her words felt heavy, yet freeing. For years, I had believed silence was the price of peace. But now, I realized silence only feeds the disrespect that grows in its shadow. The most surprising part was Fahad. He hovered around me all evening, bringing me tea, fixing the lights, making sure every little thing was perfect. There was a guilt in his eyes, but also something else, a quiet pride. He finally saw me, not as a fixture of the house, but as his mother, a woman with feelings, dignity, and boundaries. At one point, he leaned down and said, "Ammi, I'm sorry for not noticing before. I should have spoken up sooner." I smiled and touched his cheek. "It's all right, Beta. Sometimes life teaches us lessons we can't learn from words, only from mistakes." When it was time to cut the cake, Rania stood beside me. Her eyes were red, her smile fragile. She held out the knife, but I gently placed my hand over hers. "We'll cut it together," I said. Her eyes widened, surprised. "Together?" "Yes," I replied. "Because forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it just lets us move forward without carrying it like a burden." As the knife went through the soft icing, applause filled the room. Someone started singing off-key, but heartfelt. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't invisible anymore. Not because I demanded attention, but because I had finally drawn a line that said, "This is who I am, and I deserve to be seen." The next day, the ripples of that small, honest celebration reached farther than I expected. People began calling, sending messages, some to congratulate me, others to ask curiously, "Was it true? Did your daughter-in-law really?" I never confirmed or denied. I just said, everything happens for a reason. Let them guess. Sometimes, dignity lies in mystery. But something deeper changed inside the family itself. Raina began spending more time with me, not out of guilt, but out of genuine effort. She started asking for advice again, helping me cook, sitting beside me in the evenings as I told stories about Fahad's childhood. It wasn't the same as before. Trust once broken never returns the same shape. But it was softer now, more honest. And I noticed something else. She began treating her own mother differently too. More humble, more grounded, as if realizing that love should never come at the cost of someone else's place. A few weeks later, during Eid, something happened that truly surprised me. Rania's mother, the woman whose name had once replaced mine, came to visit. She entered with a tray of sweets and a quiet smile. "Assalamu alaikum, Salmaji," she said. I hesitated for a moment before replying. "Wa alaikum assalam." "Please, come in." We sat together in the drawing room, two women of the same age, once unknowingly placed on opposite sides of a painful moment. After a while, she sighed and said softly, "I didn't know about that party," Rania told me later, and I felt terrible. That wasn't right. Her honesty disarmed me. For years, I'd assumed she was part of the manipulation. But now, looking into her tired eyes, I realized she too was caught in a web of expectations and pride. I nodded. It's in the past. We both raised our children to do right. Sometimes, they forget what that looks like. She smiled faintly. And sometimes, they need mothers like us to remind them. We both laughed quietly, the laughter of two women who had finally laid down their swords. That evening, as I sat by the window, watching the fading sunlight spill across the street, I thought about how strange life can be. How quickly love can turn to hurt, and hurt back to understanding. We spend years trying to please others, children, spouses, families. But in the end, the peace we crave comes from honoring ourselves. I realized the betrayal had been painful, yes, but it had also forced me to wake up, to step out of the quiet corner I'd lived in for so long, and into the light of my own voice. And when Rania came to me that night and whispered, "Amiji, thank you for not giving up on me," I simply replied, "Thank you for finally seeing me." Because in that one sentence, everything that needed to heal, did. It's been 6 months since that strange birthday. The one that began as a lie and ended as a revelation. So much has changed in that time, though if you looked at our home from the outside, you wouldn't notice anything different. The same old wooden gate, the same marigolds swaying in the garden, the same evening tea brewing on the stove. But inside, something has changed. The silence is no longer heavy. It hums now, gentle and calm. Even the air feels softer. I've started waking up early again, before the sun. There's a kind of peace in those moments when the world hasn't yet decided what kind of day it will be. I pour my tea, open the curtains, and watch the city slowly wake. Children running late for school, the newspaper boys shouting, the sound of someone sweeping their front steps. It's the rhythm of normal life, and for the first time in years, I feel part of it again. Not as someone's mother-in-law, not as a woman waiting to be remembered, but as myself. Rania still brings me tea every morning. Sometimes we sit together quietly, scrolling through photos, laughing about something Fahad said, or planning what to cook for dinner. Other days, we don't speak much at all, and that's okay too. Healing doesn't always look like grand apologies. Sometimes it's just two people sharing space again, without the need to defend or explain. A few weeks ago, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a simple, handwritten card. It said, "This year's birthday is yours, Amiji, only yours. And this time, I want to plan it with you, not for you." There was no glitter, no printed invitations, no fancy calligraphy. Just those few words, and I swear, They meant more than any party could. We spent the next few days planning together. It wasn't a huge celebration, just family and a few close friends. But for the first time, I felt joy while preparing, not suspicion. She asked me about my favorite cake flavor, what color I wanted for the tablecloth, even which old songs I wanted to play in the background. It was a small thing, but it was everything. When the day finally arrived, I looked around and saw something beautiful. Every detail reflected me. My favorite yellow sari draped across the chair. The jasmine garland I used to hang every year. A table full of home-cooked dishes, not catered, not rehearsed, just real food made with love. As I cut the cake, everyone clapped, and I realized this wasn't just a birthday. It was a homecoming, not into a house, but into my own worth. Later that night, when everyone had left and the house was quiet again, Rania came to me with a small box. Inside was a silver locket, engraved with 3 tiny words. "You are seen." Tears stung my eyes before I could even speak. "Why this?" I asked, my voice trembling. She smiled softly. "Because I forgot, for a long time, how much you matter. And because I want to remember, every time I see you wear it." I held her hand and said, "The best gift you could ever give me is respect. And today, you gave it back." That night, as I sat by my window with the locket resting against my heart, I thought about the strange way life teaches us things. Sometimes through joy, sometimes through humiliation, and sometimes through a hidden invitation with someone else's name on it. It took me years to understand that being kind doesn't mean being silent, that love doesn't require you to disappear, and that sometimes the greatest dignity lies not in shouting, but in quietly standing your ground. I look back at that night when I found the invitation, the shock, the pain, the confrontation, and I realize I'm almost grateful for it. It stripped away all the illusions. It forced me to speak. It gave me back something I didn't even know I'd lost, my own place in my family's story. Now, when I walk through this house, I don't feel like a guest anymore. Every corner feels like mine again, not because anyone gave it to me, but because I claimed it. Even Rania's laughter sounds different now. It's lighter, freer, like she's finally stopped performing and started being real. And Fahad, well, he looks at both of us with a new kind of respect. Maybe he finally understands that a strong home isn't built by choosing sides. It's built by choosing honesty. As the days go by, I've learned something beautiful. You can't control how people treat you, but you can control what you accept. And once you stop accepting less than what you deserve, everything begins to shift quietly, but powerfully. When I wear that silver locket now, I don't wear it as a reminder of pain. I wear it as a reminder of growth, because every scar, even the ones hidden behind polite smiles, tells a story worth remembering. And mine. Mine is a story of rediscovery, of finding my voice in the middle of betrayal, and using it not to hurt, but to heal. When I look back now, I don't think of that day with anger anymore. I think of it as the day I finally saw the truth, not just about my daughter-in-law, but about myself. You see, when we love our families deeply, we sometimes mistake silence for peace. We start to shrink ourselves so no one feels uncomfortable around us. We say it's okay even when it isn't, because we fear losing harmony more than we fear losing ourselves. But peace built on silence is only an illusion. Real peace begins the moment you decide that your presence, your feelings, your worth deserve to be seen. That birthday wasn't just a celebration. It was a mirror. It showed me how far I had drifted from myself, and how much I needed to return. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need grand apologies. All I needed was recognition. And once I found it, everything else began to heal naturally, like sunlight touching an old wound. So, if you're listening to this and you've ever felt invisible in your own home, if you've ever watched others take credit for your kindness, or turned small humiliations into forgiveness just to keep the peace, I want you to remember this. You can be gentle and strong. You can forgive and set boundaries. You can love your family and still expect respect. It doesn't make you cruel. It makes you human. Sometimes, the people we love most are the ones who need to be reminded how to love us back. And when you remind them kindly, but firmly, you don't just reclaim your place. You teach them what love is supposed to look like. So, I'll leave you with this thought. If you found out that someone close to you planned a celebration that erased your name, would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you speak up to keep yourself? Tell me in the comments what you would have done. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe. Because every story I share is a reminder that no matter what others take from us, we always have the power to take ourselves back.